Hey everyone. Please support what I do to help keep Greyhawk alive by subscribing to the channel. Also, please consider becoming a channel member to get early access to videos, exclusive live chats, quarterly adventure modules, and more. Thanks, and enjoy the show. So, From the Ashes is a product that has kind of split a lot of the Greyhawk community. I thought I'd talk about it today on Greyhawk Broadband. So, um, From the Ashes is a product that elicits a lot of strong feelings in some Greyhawk fans. A lot of people really don't like it, and a lot of people really do. Um, I'm one of the people who do, and actually, I wasn't always though. When it first came out, I didn't really like it. I didn't really get it, um, and uh, I hadn't really put it in the larger context of things. Um, and it was kind of, it felt like, okay, Gary Gygax is gone, and we're gonna, do something to to take Greyhawk away from it. Um, and if you look at it, it's really, in my opinion, it's a lot better than it seems it's a lot better than its reputation has made it seem. Um, it was created by Carl Sargent, released in 1992, and basically it's a redo of the Gold Box. It's got um, a campaign book which focuses on the area around the city of Greyhawk. It's got another atlas that goes through all the different countries. But what it's most noted for is the fact that it is advanced the timeline where the gold box was set in 576 of the common year. From the Ashes is set in common year 585. So you have this um, 9 year uh, time jump, and it's the time jump that a lot of people object to. And I understand it, although time jumps in such settings are not uncommon. I mean, we see it in the Forgotten Realms a lot. Um, we've seen it in a number of different things. In fact, the only one I can think of that explicitly says we will never do a time jump is Harn. Uh, and apparently they're still coming out with new Harn stuff, so more power to them. But basically, From the Ashes builds on an earlier product, Greyhawk Wars, which really upended the setting, and that's another thing that a lot of people dislike about it. And I have my own issues with it, but I'm kind of more nuanced than some people. Basically, what happens between um, the Gold Box and From the Ashes is an enormous series of wars, as you could tell from the name of Greyhawk Wars, um, that serve to take away some kingdoms. They're completely wiped off the map. They're conquered by other kingdoms. Rulers are overthrown and replaced by somebody else. The Great Kingdom notably breaks up into a number of different smaller realms. The Scarlet Brotherhood makes its move and takes over entire kingdoms, bringing in slaves from the south to bolster their armies to do so. Um, Ayuz, the half demon Cambion up in the north, conquers a huge swath of territory. Um, and basically, it takes in a tonal sense, it takes the sense of balance that the gold box had, where everything, good and evil were both kind of strong, and anything could tip the balance. And it takes that and it changes it into a setting where evil is on the ascendancy and the nations of good are being backed into corners and are on their last legs. So it's up to the PCs to kind of help bolster the good lands and so forth. It changes it from a balance focused campaign setting to a evil ascendant campaign setting, and in a lot of ways that allows for a more um, story based narrative take on, because now you've got an overarching story built into the setting that you didn't have back then. You had a bunch of little stories going on all over the place, and they had all these little bits of information and intrigue and stuff that you could develop into your own thing as a DM. But now the setting was explicitly kind of geared around that, right? Because Ayuz was about to conquer more stuff, and the Scarlet Brotherhood was expanding, and the Great Kingdom had just collapsed and was doing all kinds of horrible things were going on. Demons were walking across the land, so there was a lot of stuff going on, and um, all of this was kind of predicated on the events that were detailed here in Greyhawk Wars, which consists of a board game, which is kind of meh, but it also has an adventurer's book, which kind of lays out all the different things that happen. This army moved here, and this person did this, and so forth. It covers the span of time for a few years of what happens during the wars. Um, and this kind of builds on things that we had seen in earlier products, and a lot of and, that's a subtle thing that is overlooked sometimes. Is that this didn't come out of nowhere? The ideas that were happening. We saw a lot of this in the News of the Flness articles in Dragon from the early '80s that Gary Gygax and later Rob Kuntz worked on, where they basically told about, this is what's going on. There was a battle over here, and this is happening over there. But what a lot of people overlook is that Gary Gygax himself, not long after the Gold Box was published, was advancing the timeline because the Gold Box was set in 576. So when Gygax, not too long thereafter, comes out with articles, he's describing events in 577, 578, and even 579. So the he's advancing the timeline already, way years before any of this happened. So the idea that Gygax never intended to advance the setting is not tenable because he was doing it himself in the early '80s in these articles. Um, and if you look at the details of the articles, they really fit well with what we see happening in the early stages of the Greyhawk Wars. Um, it's really amazing that they put a lot more thought into it than it seemed at the time. But when you go back and you kind of plug in all the different things, the battles between the Iron League and the South Province, and what was going on with the Rovers of the Barons and Ayus and the Horn Society and so forth. And it's not shouldn't be a surprise because the Adventurers book was designed by Dave Cook. So he's not he's not a hack. He knows what he's doing, and he did a really good job kind of carrying forward those themes. We even see in the City of Greyhawk box set, the fall of the Shieldlands. That the timeline's a little odd, but you can kind of bend over and squint and make it work. But we actually see that before this came out with the City of Greyhawk box set, that the Shieldlands had fallen, and that kind of leads directly into a lot of the things that we see here. So it's definitely carrying on the tradition that we saw established in the early '80s already, while Gygax was in the was still at TSR, and and I looking back on it from this far back. It does seem to carry on that same tone and the same tenor, and it works. If I do have a criticism of the way it was implemented, I wouldn't have just called it the Greyhawk Wars. I know why they did it. It's a marketing thing, and they wanted to make it this big event, kind of like a comic book big crossover event, like Secret Wars or something. Um, but I think if you look at it not as this one big thing happened, but rather this happened over here, and then this happened down in the south, and this happened up in the north, and you break it out into its component parts without giving it that overall umbrella label of the Greyhawk Wars, then it fits even better into what we saw happening in those articles, and hinted at in some other places. Of it's just a continuation of kingdoms go to war and stuff happens and so on and so forth. So now we have at the end of the wars, everybody's kind of exhausted, everybody's kind of regrouping, evil's ascendant, and you have a lot of changes. Ayuz, like I said, has this big empire in the north. The Great Kingdom is now dissolved, and this is when we see some of the best products that were ever published for Greyhawk come out. If you're looking for more details, those gazetteers, I use the Evil, the Marklands, Ivid the Undying, which was not published. It was planned to be published by Rob Kuntz. It was planned to be published. It never actually got into print, but TSR eventually released it as a PDF, and the fans later cleaned it up and put it into the same format. So you can find it floating around out there, and it's not. It's not a bad thing. It was actually released as a PDF, free PDF by them. So okay. Um, I can't actually now that I said it out loud, I don't remember if it was TSR or WotC, but yeah, I think it was TSR. Um, so you have these big changes to the setting, and they're not as nearly as horrific, at least in my opinion, as they've been let out to be. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it, and it's also worth noting that Rob Kuntz, who was the ODM of the original Greyhawk campaign and wrote some of those articles of the news from the Flyness, he in one of his recent books flat out says that he thought that Carl Sargent was the one of the Greyhawk authors who got the original intent the best. So take that as you will. Um, anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know this is something that a lot of people disagree on, so I will ask you to please be kind of, be nice in the comments. Don't name calling and it's try to be a little substantive in what you say. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the wars in general and the From the Ashes and that whole era that it ushered in. What was your experience back then and today with that? Do you still go with the advancing the timeline idea, or do you just go off and whatever? Because from my own perspective, I still start my campaigns in 576. I tend to follow what happens, but it's I like to have all that happening in the background. And of course, I did a video not too long ago on how you can have your players take things in a different direction if you want to. So I would love to hear your comments in the below. Yes, I'd love to hear your comments. So please leave your comments below. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, and I will talk to you later.
Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.